You've seen this before. A pepper plant comes up thick and green, branches full, leaves so dark you'd think it was showing off. Then weeks pass, and you're standing there, wondering where the peppers went. That plant isn't sick. It isn't dying. It's flowering without ever setting. Most gardeners never learn the difference. Nobody sells you the answer. Here's the truth. A flower costs the plant almost nothing. Turning that flower into a pepper, one that hangs, fills out, ripens, costs something specific. One mineral. One you've probably never thought to put back in your soil. It doesn't come in a bag with a tomato on it. Most years, you're not buying it. You're burning it and throwing it away. This is Green Haven Farm Channel. If you've spent real time in a garden, you know this feeling. Doing everything right and still coming up short. You water on schedule. You feed on schedule. Your plants look strong, and the peppers still don't come. That gap between a garden that looks healthy and a garden that feeds you is why this channel exists. What you're about to learn isn't new. It's not a trick. No lab invented it last year to sell you something. Growers knew this generations before fertilizer came in a bag, back when nothing on a farm went to waste, and every bit of ash found its way back into the ground it came from. You're about to see why that gray ash matters more than almost anything on the garden store shelf, and how to use it without burning the plant you're trying to help. I'll say this once, then leave it. If this is useful, hit the subscribe button. That's the whole request. Everything else you need is right here, free. Now let's get into it. A pepper plant, like any fruiting plant, pulls three main things from the soil. You're going to hear these in plain words, not the letters on a fertilizer bag, because plain words are what actually help you. The first pushes leafy green growth. Feed a plant heavy on this alone and you get a bush. Thick, dark, healthy looking, and hardly a pepper on it. This is the trap that catches gardeners without them ever knowing why. The second builds strong roots and drives real fruit development. It helps a flower that's already opened actually turn into a pepper that fills out and ripens, instead of dropping off the plant. Wood ash is rich in exactly this. Research comparing ash-treated pepper plots to untreated ground shows improved growth and yield, especially on soil farmed hard for years and stripped of what it once had. Here's what separates wood ash from anything you'd buy in a bag. It isn't a fast release. It doesn't wash off in the first rain. It works because of what it actually is. The mineral remains left behind after wood burns away everything else. What's left is concentrated. Working into living soil, it breaks down through that soil's own biology, releasing what your peppers need on a slow, steady curve, instead of dissolving instantly and washing past the roots before the plant ever gets to use it. That's why it matters how much you use and where you put it. Wood ash raises pH as it works. You don't dump it on and forget it. Used with a light hand, worked into the soil instead of piled on top, it delivers calcium and potassium without pushing your ground more alkaline than your peppers can handle. Used carelessly, that same liming effect becomes the problem instead of the fix. That's the line between a gardener who gets loaded plants from a free byproduct and one who stunts a whole season by going in heavy-handed. The third is structural strength, the mineral that firms up cell walls and helps a pepper hold its shape instead of going soft or rotting from the blossom end inward. This is where wood ash does something almost nothing else does for free. It carries real calcium, the same mineral gardeners buy crushed eggshell and garden lime for. Extension research out of Indiana and Alabama confirms it. Wood ash acts as a liming agent. It raises soil pH and supplies both calcium and potassium in one no-cost amendment. One gray powder, 3 minerals. Most people are sweeping it out of a fire pit and throwing it in the trash. Now let me give you the honest side of this. I'm not going to sell you on wood ash like it's got no downside. You deserve better than that. Some growers will tell you, don't add any wood ash unless you've had your soil tested first. Your ground might already sit on the alkaline side, and piling more liming material onto soil that doesn't need it works against you. There's real sense in that. If you're gardening a large plot, or your peppers have been struggling in ways you can't explain, a soil test is a small cost for a real answer. Extension research is consistent here. Wood ash isn't neutral. It shifts pH. Push soil too alkaline, and you lock up other nutrients your plant needs just as much as calcium and potassium. But here's the other side, just as honest. Most home gardens haven't been professionally tested in years, if ever. A heavily cropped pepper bed pulls potassium and calcium out of the ground every season, often faster than people assume. So if your peppers are flowering without setting, or you're seeing that telltale blossom end rot, your plant is telling you plainly what a lab test would only confirm. And I'll be just as fair on the other end. Wood ash is not a cure-all. Blossom end rot comes from uneven watering just as often as it comes from a calcium shortfall. And a pepper plant dropping blossoms in a heat spike isn't short on minerals at all. It's short on cool nights. No powder, gray or otherwise, fixes that. Keep the whole picture in view, not just the one fix trending this week. Here's exactly how you put this to work. Knowing the why means nothing if you don't know the how. Don't scatter wood ash on the soil surface and walk away. Left sitting dry on top, it spikes the pH right where your feeder roots are working, and a hard rain washes a good part of it off before it does you any good. Instead, work it lightly into the top couple inches of soil, a small distance out from the base of the plant, not pressed against the stem. Planting new peppers? This is where a light hand matters most. Mix a small measure of ash into the soil at the bottom of the planting hole, along with your compost, down among where the roots will spread, not sitting in a concentrated pile the roots have to push into. Some growers go a step further and steep ash in water for a liquid feed instead. Research on wood ash liquid fertilizer shows this can supply potassium and calcium in a form the plant takes up faster, and it's easier to apply at a controlled, dilute strength. If you go this route, light steeping ratio, not a concentrated brew. The goal is a mild feed, not a shock to the roots. One more thing, plainly, not every plant wants this. Acid-loving plants, blueberries, azaleas, some potatoes, don't want their soil pushed toward alkaline. Wood ash worked in around them does more harm than good. Save it for the plants that actually benefit from a liming, calcium-rich feed, your peppers included. Once your peppers are in the ground and growing, this isn't a one-and-done feeding. About once a month through the growing season, work a light dusting of wood ash into the soil around each plant. Not a heavy handful, just a light, even scattering worked in at the surface. That's enough. Wood ash is concentrated. More isn't better here. Piling it on doesn't get you more peppers faster. It just pushes your soil further alkaline than your plants can use. Pay attention to your plants as the season goes. Strong flowering, but fruit that stays small or drops before it fills out? Lean in a little more. Leaves yellowing between the veins? You've pushed too far. Back off and let the soil rest. Here's something that will save you money and waste. And almost nobody tells you this. You don't keep feeding a pepper plant for fruit after it stops setting for the season. Work backwards from your first frost. A pepper flower needs real time to turn into fruit you can pick and eat. Any bloom opening too close to that frost date is never going to make it. Feeding ash for blooms that late is just spending effort on flowers that die on the vine when the cold comes. Some weeks out from frost, stop. That's not laziness. That's thrift. And thrift is respect for what a thing costs you. And let's be honest about why so few people know any of this. There's real money in selling you a bright bottle of Bloom Booster every spring. Some concentrated liquid with a big promise on the label. There's no money in telling you the ash from your own fire pit does most of the same job for free. Nobody's hiding this out of malice. It's simpler than that. Nothing gets advertised if nothing gets sold. The free thing never had anyone standing to profit from you knowing it. So it slips away, a little more every year, while the expensive answer gets louder. That's the whole of it. Here's something that will save you money and waste. And almost nobody tells you this. You don't keep feeding a pepper plant for fruit after it stops setting for the season. Work backwards from your first frost. A pepper flower needs real time to turn into fruit you can pick and eat. Any bloom opening too close to that frost date is never going to make it. Feeding ash for blooms that late is just spending effort on flowers that die on the vine when the cold comes. Some weeks out from frost, stop. That's not laziness. That's thrift. And thrift is respect for what a thing costs you. And let's be honest about why so few people know any of this. There's real money in selling you a bright bottle of Bloom Booster every spring. Some concentrated liquid with a big promise on the label. There's no money in telling you the ash from your own fire pit does most of the same job for free. Nobody's hiding this out of malice. It's simpler than that. Nothing gets advertised if nothing gets sold. The free thing never had anyone standing to profit from you knowing it. So it slips away. A little more every year, while the expensive answer gets louder. That's the whole of it. So there's the whole of it. A pepper plant that flowers without fruiting isn't broken. It's just short on the one mineral that turns a bloom into something you can pick. Wood ash gives you that, plus the calcium your peppers need to hold their shape and skip blossom and rot, all from something most people sweep up and throw away. Work it in light. Keep it away from the plants that don't want it. Feed it steady through the season. Know when to stop once frost is close enough that new blooms won't have time to ripen. Tell me in the comments, where do you garden? And have your peppers been all flower and no fruit? Or setting well for you? If your family had an old way of using ash in the garden, I want to hear it. Put it down there. There's always something worth learning from the old ways people kept without ever writing them down. And if this is useful, subscribe to Greenhaven Farm, because next time, I'll show you the other free thing most gardeners throw away without a second thought, and why it might be doing more for your soil than anything you've ever bought in a bag.